In this video, we are going to have a look at a few examples for CommonJS module system. CommonJS module system, as we earlier saw, that follows this syntax. We have a require statement where you can give a library name, and then uh, we can get that library imported, and then that can be accessed using some variable. Now we saw that variable, using that variable we can simply call the methods which are available in that library. Okay, so let's see that. So let's say here, here we are having const underscore is equal to require lodash, and you must have already installed this. If you don't have already installed, then you can do npm I lodash just for testing, and then later you can remove it. Just we are trying to test. I have already installed it, so I'm not going to reinstall it. But the point is that now if it is available, then whatever you do, so for example const deep copy is equal to, I am trying to create a copy, deep copy of some object, let's say foo, I don't know, like D34, anything. So when I will print DC, then you can see that this DC printed is a deep copy of the provided object. But the idea is that you can see that it is clearly running. And why it is directly running? Because this is CommonJS module system and we are running in Node.js. If you write this piece of code in browsers, then it will throw error, right? So somehow you have to, if you are bundling it through Webpack, then it will run. But directly if you try to run it, then it will throw error, because this require thing is not defined in browsers. And if you bundle through Webpack, then Webpack will do proper thing. They will do aliasing, they will create some variables, they will try to somehow make this work with browsers also, right? But the idea is that directly it will not work. Now this is an example of direct using a library directly, right? But there are situations where you have local file, and then you want to require that local file rather than a library. Okay, in that case, so for example foo is there, right? So rather than having importing a library, I could also import a local file. Okay, so something like this. Okay, but once you do this, then there is a mechanism that from the file which you are requiring, from this file there has to be something exported, then only that thing can be imported here. Imported here means required here, right? So this is not needed right now, and this can be anything. So let's say obj, and we'll just for time being print obj, that is fine. But the idea is that right now if we simply run it, then you see that you are getting an empty object. Why? Because nothing is exported from this file of foo.js, right? So what is the syntax for exporting something? The syntax is this: in that file which you are requiring at any other place, from that file you have to export something using this syntax. So you can write module dot exports is equal to, and then anything like foo 5 bar hello, anything you write, that is fine. And now if you run the code, then you can see that whatever you are exporting from here, that thing has come in this variable. You can understand. So now if you do obj.foo, obj. What was the another thing? Yeah, bar. All those things will be accessible directly. So you can see that obj.foo is 5, obj.bar is hello. Yeah, so whatever you are exporting, that thing becomes available as obj. That is how it works. Next, CommonJS modules are loaded synchronously. which means that you can use it wherever you want, and as soon as you use it, that module will become instantaneously available to you, right? And it will wait for that module to load, and then it will give it to you. Okay, so it's not asynchronous. We'll see later that there are some places where asynchronous is there, but directly in case of require it is not there. Okay, which means that if you say require, then this obj is like proper thing exported from here, like there is not a promise or something. It is like a proper data, right? You are not awaiting. So until unless you get that data from here, this JavaScript will wait, and that's why it is called synchronous. Okay, speaking of that, let's say you exported something so from foo.js, that is fine, right? And now uh, you are importing that in some other file, but the idea is that it can be used, this require statement can be anywhere, which means that I can do anything here. I can do anything here. Const x is equal to 8, and then I can print anything, 8 square. I can print anything, and then also it will work fine. This does not need to be at the top. This can be later down the line anywhere. Okay, why I am emphasizing this point? Because this is not true for all module system. For example, later we'll see that all the ES modules are considered to be always at the top. Okay, that is not the case here. Here it can be anywhere. In fact, as we'll see, it can. Okay, so yeah, so we already saw this, that module.exports, if we export a file, then anywhere other you can import it, that is fine. But not only that, you can also this is just a synchronous thing, right? So nobody is saying you that you have to have a separate line in order to do this, right? In fact, you can very well do something like this also. This is fine. It is just a, it returns that object. So if you directly use that, then also it works perfectly fine. Okay. Uh, Not only that, it can be inside conditionals also. Okay. So when I'm saying that something like this is there, it does not mean that it has to be at the first level. It can be something like this also, and this will also work fine. See, I'm saying this again and again. Why? Because all these things are not, for example, something like this cannot be there. Import statement in ES modules cannot be inside if statement or something like this, right? It cannot be inside if statement. It cannot be inside callbacks also. So for example, the same piece of code can be written anywhere. So let's say in set timeout also. Understand? So let's say after 1 second I want to do do the same thing, and that should be completely fine in CommonJS ecosystem. But this sort of thing does not work in ES modules, as we'll see later. That all the resolution of modules has to be done statically initially only. It cannot be at the runtime. Okay, so yeah. Assignment to modules export must be done immediately and cannot be done in any callback. So yeah, so you can see that you can require it in callback, but you cannot do the same thing in exports. Okay, so this is like what? This is like uses importing, right? But this thing cannot be done. So for example, let's do the same thing in even if you do just after 0 second, then also it will not work. You can see that this thing is empty object, right? Because actually nothing was exported, because this export because this export did not occur because it is inside a callback. So, right. So basically, exporting cannot be done, but importing and using of require gives us too much flexibility. But exporting at the time when I am requiring it, so this since this is synchronous, as we know that require is synchronous, that's why this also has to be synchronous, and immediately you have to say that what is the file which is going to be, what is the module exports which you are going to do. If you are doing something in callback or later, then that will JavaScript has no way to know that. And the same thing we saw that conditionals also works fine while using the require. Okay, we saw that if nothing is there, we saw earlier this example, right? If nothing is there, and then also you import, then empty object is given to us. Next, let's say a file foo.js is exporting this thing which we saw earlier, right? And okay, so it looks like duplicate slide anyway. So the idea is that when you are doing something like this, so when you are doing something like this, module.exports, okay, actually, and then when you print it, so let's print it, then you get this, right? Actually, there is another way also to do the exactly the same thing. Rather than this, you can individually do something like this: dot foo is equal to 5 and dot bar is equal to hello. And even if you do this, then you will see the exact same result, which means that you could do something like this also, or you could do something like this also. Okay, and now yeah, and now we'll see that there's a shortcut for this. Rather than this, we could also write something like this, and then also we get the same answer. But beware that earlier it was module.exports and now it is exports, and answer is same. Don't think that module.exports and exports both are exactly the same thing. In a couple of slides we will discuss that what are the differences between them. There is a slight nuance there which you should understand, and once you understand that, then it will be very easy to analyze all the situations. But it is easy, we'll come back to it. So for right now, even if we do this, then it is a shortcut for that, and exactly the same piece of code will work like module exports foo. Similarly, simply exports foo will also work. Okay, now let's see what I was saying. Module exports and exports, they are not exactly the same. In fact, you can have a mental model where you can say that the exports variable is available within modules files level scope, and is assigned to module.exports, which means that exports is a separate variable which is assigned to module.exports. Okay, so it's like somebody says that yeah, so let x is equal to 10, right? And then I say that y is a separate variable assigned to x. Then you don't say that x and y are same, right? You don't say that x and y are same, because if later somebody does y is equal to 30, then you can clearly see that x and y are different, right? It is 10, it is 30, but as long as that thing was not changed, both were same. But both were same does not mean that both are actually same. It's just that initially the value of y was x. Actually, the similar concept is here, that exports is given originally, starting with from the beginning. Exports is originally given the value of module.exports, but if you later modify exports, then it does not modify module.exports, right? And modify means assignment, not directly changing. So that's why I say something like this. If you do, then since module.exports is pointing to since exports points to module.exports, so even if you change exports.foo, module.exports.foo is also changing, right? But if you do something like this, right, then module.exports is not changing, only exports is changing. Both are separate variables in that sense. We will discuss it more very soon. So let's see that there is some file and you have some piece of code in that file. Now for this module, if it is a CommonJS module, then you can understand that behavior of module.exports and exports is how. See, you can understand that internally the module is behaving something like this, that an immediately invoked function expression is sort of created, and you can understand that module is equal to exports. Module is an object with one key value pair, which is exports and empty object. Then exports is assigned to the initial value of module.exports. This is how it is, right? Which I was saying. And then this is most important, that at the end the final value returned is module.exports. Whatever is module.exports, that is finally returned. And what is the purpose of this return? The whole function, you can understand that if it is called, whatever is returned, actually this is the value which is assigned when you do something like require. So in obj, you can understand that whatever is returned from here, that will only come in obj. Okay, and inside your code, whatever you are writing, what is the purpose, if you are writing exports or if you are writing module.exports, whether it will be same or it will be different, all that analysis you try to do like this, and you try to see a variable like this, module exports, and then exports is equal to module.export. We'll see a few examples. So right now I'll just write it down, just because we will be referring it again and again. Okay, so you can understand that module. So see, this thing might not be exactly internally like this, but for our purposes, understanding this much will be sufficient, because all the analysis of behavior of module.exports and exports can be 100% analyzed using this mechanism, right? So internally there the situation might be slightly more nuanced, but for ourselves this much analysis will be sufficient. So module is equal to exports, and that exports is an object, right? And what we do, that we create a separate variable. So this is some variable, and we create a separate variable called exports, right? And that is equal to module.exports, equal to means that is assigned to module.exports in the beginning, but it is a separate variable. So you can understand that module is a separate variable. Module.exports is like what? Exports key inside module, and then exports is a separate variable. This is the setup. This is the setup in which everything is running. Okay, and then finally you return module.exports. Okay, finally whatever is returned, that is module.exports. Whatever is this, that is returned. Everything will be analyzed in this context, as in the next examples we'll see. Let's see a few examples. So let's say you do something like exports is equal to something like this, and instead of this, let's say you do module.export something like this. Is the behavior same or different? Understand? So I'm saying that I am doing module.exports is equal to foo.bar. That is, I am doing one thing this, and when I print here, I get foo bar. Instead of module.exports, I do exports is equal to foo.bar, and then I run, then I get empty object. Why this is happening? It is easy. It is very easy to analyze this behavior if you simply understand this thing which we just now discussed. See, so module is equal to module. So earlier when we were doing something like this, module dot exports, then module dot exports, I am changing this object to foobar. That is fine. That is fine. And at the end, what is returned? Whatever is module dot exports, that is returned, and that's why the answer which we got in obj was foobar. That is fine. Now if I do something like this, exports is equal to this thing, what happens? See, till the time this assignment was not done, before that exports was simply same as module dot exports. Whatever, so module dot exports was empty object. Similarly, exports was also empty object because that is what it was assigned to, right? But as soon as but I can reassign exports also, right? When I did something like this, then you can understand that this is a separate variable. I changed this variable to foobar, but module dot exports is still empty object. You see, and that's why when you and at the end module dot exports is only returned here in the CommonJS ecosystem, right? That's why this thing is empty object. Understand? Will be more clear in a few examples. So you can see that in this case, even if you assign to exports, this is empty object as we see just now. Okay, let's take a few more examples. Exports.foo is equal to 5, and then I do something like this, and then I do something like this, and then what should be the behavior? You see, foo 5. See why? Exports.foo. Okay, which means that when right now exports was pointing to module.exports. When I changed exports.foo, then basically I changed module.exports.foo also. Okay, which means that module.exports, this is changing to foo 5, whatever. Understand? Then I reassigned. Then I reassigned something like this, which means that now this connection is gone. It is something else. Whatever the new assignment I did, right? And after that, I am changing exports.bar, but now this exports is this new thing. And in new thing, whatever you keep on changing does not matter. It will not impact module.exports, and the final thing returned is module.exports only. So module.exports is simply foo 5. This thing is not after reassignment, whatever you do, that does not matter, and that's why when you do this, the actually the object which is required is actually foo 5. Okay, now let's take this example. Exports.foo is equal to 5, module.exports is equal to foo bar, and then exports. In what happens? Exports.foo is exports is same as module.exports till, because it is not reassigned till now. So exports.foo means module.exports.foo. So basically that is fine. It is like same as this only. Then you are saying that module.exports is equal to foo bar, which means that module.exports, and you reassigned it to foo bar rather than foo 5. Now you are reassigning it. This whole thing you removed and reassigned to another object. So foo bar or something, right? And now you do exports.bar. Now this exports is still I have not reassigned exports, right? So this exports is still module.exports. If I do dot bar, then you are essentially doing module.exports.bar, which means that module.exports.bar essentially you are doing here only bar is equal to hello. What bar is equal to hello? Yeah. So when I return module.exports, what is module.exports? This whole thing, foo bar and bar hello, and that's why okay, so let's see exports dot foo exports dot bar. So I believe it should change. Let's see it in action. So in foo.js we are doing exports dot foo is equal to 5, So let's have that reference. So this reference will be helpful. That's why let's have this reference. Let's have this reference. Okay, and we'll keep on changing above. That is fine. So we are saying that exports dot foo is equal to 5. Okay, and then you are doing module dot exports is equal to foo bar, and then you are doing exports dot bar is equal to hello. Yeah, you see, so see, the problem is what? The answer is correct. The problem is that actually when you reassigned it, the connection with exports is gone, and that is the problem. So you see that let's say something like this, that this module dot exports, this module dot exports, so this object was, let's say, uh, at 1000 memory location, right? At 1000 memory location, this empty object is there, right? And now I'm saying that exports was assigned to module dot exports, which means that uh, module exports is also pointing to that same memory location 1000. But when you did this assignment, then a new place, let's say 2000 memory location, a new place, let's say 2000 memory location is created, and there this foo bar is created, which means that now my module dot exports, see, this thing is pointing to 2000, right? But exports is still pointing to the original module dot exports. Original module dot exports was at 1000. This thing, it is still pointing to 1000, and that's why when you change exports dot bar, then actually you are changing at 1000 memory location. You are basically changing this bar hello, whatever you are doing it here. But at the end, you are returning module dot exports. Module dot exports is as 2000. At 2000, you just have foo bar, and that's why when you return, then it is foo bar. So see, no, you will never do such complicated things. You will do very simple things, and the best rule is that always use module dot exports. You will never be confused. There is the simplest rule. But you should understand this, because whenever other people's code you are reading, then sometimes exports will be used, right? And the convention is also that like that while exporting simply named simple this particular named variables, we will simply use dot foo dot that. And if you want to have a mammoth object is there, let's say 5 10 property whatever there, and at one time you want to export all of them, then module dot exports is used. That is a convention, right? And this has become much more clearer in ES modules, but we have to deal with CommonJS right now just to understand that how it happens there. So this is how actually it was it came out to be foo bar. So I hope it is now clear, right? So let's see a few more examples. Exports.foo is 5 and module.exports is equal to, yeah, so this is the solution. This is the solution to this, that if we do something like that right now exports.foo, so let's see that exports earlier. So when this thing is there, so you see that exports, let's see something like this. So both are 1000, right? Yeah, so exports and module.exports both are pointing to 1000, and that 1000 memory location is having empty object. This is a scenario. Now you see exports.foo is 5, which exports is right now like same 1000 only. Exports.foo, which means that basically you did something like this. and then you did something like you assigned exports is equal to foobar. So you created a new object at 2000 memory location, and that new object is foobar, right? And this new object is assigned to exports, which means that now exports points to 2000, but at the same time you are also assigning it to module.exports, which means that module.exports is also pointing to 2000. And now if you do exports.bar, then exports is pointing to 2000, which means that you are changing this to bar and whatever hello, bar hello. Yeah, that should be fine. And yeah, and now that's why you see that when, and finally whatever will be exported, that will be a module.exports, right? Module.exports 2000. This thing is foobar bar hello, foobar bar hello. So that is how it is working, right? Everything can be explained using this scenario. Even if you do some mistake, then you see the output, and then you try to justify the output using this behavior, and you should be able to justify that. Okay, now just take another example. Actually, foo.exports, every time we are using object, actually it can be anything. It can be integer, it can be function, it can be string. You can export anything. Okay, in this example we are exporting function, which means that module.exports is equal to function. So right now when I will do something like this, require this thing will become a function, and that's why now I can directly call it. So it doesn't need to be an object. It can be, if you module.exports is equal to hello string you return, then this thing, this variable will be hello, right? Whatever, anything you can export, and that same thing will be imported when you do require. Next, yeah. So exports dot square and exports dot sqrt, which means that initially obviously both are same. So here only sqrt and square both are created, which means that when you module.exports, when you return, then you are getting that thing only, and that's why this sqrt. And so you could have had let's say obj here, and then obj.square and obj.sqrt you could have done, or you can directly do destructuring here only, square and sqrt. But the idea is that both will be available, and then you can call them. Yeah, so that will be all for now. There are some things left for CommonJS module system, which we'll discuss in one of the videos later. But for now, CommonJS module systems should be sufficient for us. So that's all. Thank you.